What is the most important part of Fallout New Vegas? Killing? Gambling? Sociopolitical power brokering? More killing? No, it's none of those, because you can avoid almost all of them. But there's one thing you absolutely can't avoid. Walking. Locomoting on your own 2 feet. And this is a role-playing game, so let me get into the role. Ladies and gentlemen, submitted for your approval, the Fallout New Vegas Marathon. This is how it works. For every half an hour of playtime, I have to run 1 mile in the real world. It doesn't matter if I spent that 30 minutes staring at the wall. Once the timer ticks over, I gotta hit the road, Jack, and don't come back until I put another 5,280 feet behind me. To ensure that I don't get through this playthrough too quickly, there are a few additionals. Rule number 1, no yes man. He's gone. He's dead. Rule number 2, there are 29 end slides that can appear in the ending to New Vegas. 5 of them appear no matter what, and I need to end the game with at least 15. Third and final rule is I'm using a few mods, most notably the J. Sawyer Director's Cut. Mostly because I already had it installed and I didn't want to go through the headache of uninstalling it. Alright, let's do this. After catching 2 bullets with my forehead and being revived by Doc Mitchell, I named my character Long Tall Sally, because she's built for speed, and she got everything that Uncle John need. I got out of bed and it's immediately time to hit the run. Yeah, it's at the start of the half an hour. If I want to keep playing, this is the buy-in. When I got back, I picked my special stats, tried to kick Doc Mitchell in the face without success, then we moved on to the couch where Long Tall Sally is so tall that she towers over the good doctor even when sitting down. But don't worry, Long Tall Sally is a good-natured Amazonian, who is going to be seeing some freaky shit. Free of the house, I got to work like every playthrough, stealing everything that wasn't nailed down. And tuning my dial to Conelrad, Civil Defense Radio, your main source for music in the nuclear holocaust. Once I had all I could carry, I went to talk to Sunny and start the tutorial mission for some easy experience. The bottles were dealt with, and we moved on to the geckos. I killed the first one in 1 shotgun blast. I moved on to the second one, but I missed. Then my shotgun jammed. Then I missed again. Finally, the first boss was defeated and I could continue with the game. The tutorial was completed and I talked to this dweeb Baron Thorn who wants me to save his girlfriend from more geckos. I've played this game enough to know it's a trap, but killing geckos, and killing him, would be good experience. To save ammo, I engaged the geckos in a martial art I like to call wildly flailing with a knife. Very simple, very effective. After the last geckos were dead, Thorn joined me on the ridge for the inevitable betrayal. He's a nerd with no armor, but he does have a plasma pistol for some reason. I don't know why, I'm still level 1. What I do know is that he killed me in 2 shots. And my last save was just after leaving the Prospector Saloon, so I had to do the tutorial over again. This time I didn't bother with the whole ambush, just went up point blank with my shotgun. And he killed me again! Back to the saloon, do the tutorial for the 3rd time in the same damn playthrough. At this point, I should have just quit while I was behind. Leave the man alone. But now I had a point to make. Literally, I went up behind him and shoved the point of my knife into his brainstem. Baron Thorn was finally dead, just in time to hit the half an hour mark. For all intents and purposes, I am still in Good Springs. I cleared out the Gecko Ridge because I had come too far to leave that job half done. While I was at it, I stopped by Lone Wolf Radio for the skill book, killed powder gangers for the experience, swung by Gene's skydiving for the loot, killed coyotes for the experience, and swung by Good Springs Cemetery for the snow globe. I could have added the Good Springs Schoolhouse to this little tour, but it was kinda out of the way. I leveled up along the way and took Swift Learner because I'm gonna need to squeeze the most experience out of the least amount of opportunities. And besides, what else am I going to take at level 2? Black Widow? When would that ever be useful? Back inside the Prospector Saloon, I learned about Ringo, started the Ghost Town gunfight quest, and me telling you all of that is about twice as long as it took to complete. But that was one ending slide down, and I would get one more as I headed for Prim. The path there was bright and full of nothing. The convicts patrolling the town were vulnerable to 20-gauge buck, and I made it to Johnson Nash right as I hit my 3rd mile. At least this one felt thematic with my travel to Prim, though I don't think it ever rained along my in-game travels. Nash was straight to the point after I skipped over all his dialogue. Help the deputy, find a sheriff, get the end slide, quick and easy. Well, maybe not easy. The single shotgun was starting to show its weakness at this point, and the knife had to pick up the slack. But I found the deputy. Deputy Beagle, who, once threatened, agreed to help me liberate the rest of the Bison Steve Hotel. Beagle the man fought valiantly, but ultimately had to give his life to ensure the safety of the town. He would have wanted me to take his armor as a memorial. He also would have wanted me to cut off his head. Once all the convicts were dead, I left the hotel, but wasn't quite ready to install the sheriff. I was only level 3, and I worried I wouldn't have enough science to upgrade Prim Slim, and I'd be damned if I was going to help the NCR or liberate that one guy from the prison. So I was back on the road. Thankfully, I knew of this little dungeon in the mountains behind the tavern, netting me a better shotgun, better armor, and a chance to waste valuable time rocking out to the Talbot brothers. Let's go, baby! Oh, and when I say that shotgun I got was better, it was so much better. On my way out, I got ambushed by an assassin wearing gym shorts and no shirt. Man didn't seem to understand that CrossFit and a can-do attitude was no match for 2 barrels of all-American steel. And a knife. But I still hadn't hit the level cap, so continued south towards Nipton. Or I would have, except another 30 minutes had passed before I got there, so I took to the street with images of crucifixion and Volpes driving me forward. And when I got to Nipton, Volpes asked me to spread the good word of Kaisar. I agreed, and we will never see Volpes again for the rest of this playthrough. I took a few supplies, and just as I was on my way out of town, this maniac started charging at me. Then he started charging at the house. He had to be put down, for everyone's sake. Then this second man started charging at me, and I had to kill him too. It was chaos. More people down the road who actually started shooting at me first, except for the one that ran off into the night. At the NCR outpost, I made everyone sad by telling them how the Legion made Nipton into a very literal Burning Man festival, but I made myself very happy by finally getting that level up. I was ready to head back to Prim, and stopped in with Ranger Jackson since his quest would be on the way. Now at this point I was just under 2 hours in, exactly 4 miles deep, feeling a touch thirsty, and this is my long way of saying you can watch me keep playing the game with one hand, drink water with the other, and try to kill giant ants with my foot. Once I was back at Prim, I found Prim Slim, and it turns out the science skill I had at level 3 would have been enough. That's okay, I've only played this game a very little. Honestly, this should annoy the hell out of me, but there was a lot of good loot along the way, and I got a level up which is never wasted. Besides, there'll be plenty of opportunities for me to get annoyed as the game gets more difficult. Speaking of which, it was time to hit the strip, skirting around the Deathclaws at Quarry Junction, sneaking past the Super Mutants at Black Mountain, up through this narrow canyon, and it's right there. But wait! I don't have 2,000 caps to enter the strip. But wait again! I have an NCR uniform, and thus access to the McCarran monorail. First I had to hit the mile for hour 2, but if I didn't know any better, I'd say I might have planned this. Luckily I do know better, because when I made it to the top to confront Benny, I still don't have enough speech to convince him to meet alone. Without that, he'll flee the strip, and worse still, his bodyguards will ambush me when I'm not prepared to handle them. So it was time for another digression, this time into Freeside where I could collect end slides and experience. So nice. But what's even nicer is the ability to navigate Freeside without hitting a load zone every 5 feet. Seriously, if you only download 2 mods, make them Freeside open and Strip open. But now I'm digressing from my digression. I did work for the Kings to lock down their end slide. I did work for the Followers to lock down their end slide. I did work for the Garrett twins, who don't have an end slide but do pay in cash and experience. And after all of that, I still hadn't hit the level cap. My solution was to head south toward Helios 1, where I could probably complete their quest. In retrospect, it might have been smarter to head north into Nellis, where I could kill 3 birds with 1 stone. But I'm current Ross, much smarter than past Ross, and future Ross having to edit this will be even smarter still. Along the way, I killed some fire ants, killed some snake people, had to hit the run for 2.5 hours while all the commercial vehicles in the world were there to cheer me on, and made it to the super secure solar power plant where the NCR just let me inside. Apparently they'll let anyone in with a good story, even this nerd master calling himself fantastic. But if I want my experience, I gotta help him out. Or help this other guy out. Doesn't really matter to me as long as I get my levels. After getting my arms blown off by mines and my torso mauled by dogs, I was ready to head inside and confront the robots. You see, I've been speccing heavily into shotguns, much as I could while dumping most of my points into speech. And shotguns don't do so well against heavily armored enemies like robots. However, I've been buying up a lot of pulse slugs in my travels. I thought I was buying them to attack the Securitron bunker later on, but no, it was right here, and the Protectrons guarding the plant never stood a chance. I tore through them fast as you please, just not quite fast enough. Because the solar panels of the solar power plant can only be aligned at peak daylight hours between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., and when I made it outside to the console, oh, it was 3:24. My faith in God was renewed because this was just too perfect to be a coincidence. But I got the plant back online. I got my level up and I got comprehension so I could make better use of magazines and finally eat all the skill books I've been carrying around. Weirdly enough, it was harder to get out of the power plant than in. NCR security is all back asswards. Once I was back at the tops, I used my only copy of Meeting People to make sure my speech was high enough, and then, and only then, did I complete the main quest which got me another level up. So the good news is, I really didn't need to worry about having my speech high enough. And there is no bad news. No, none at all, not even a little. I laid down the law with Benny. He and I were going to meet one-on-one, and he agreed. He just didn't agree very quickly. Man took his sweet-ass time trundling over to the elevator while I entertained myself by mirrors edging all over the blackjack tables. But I got him up there, got him all set up on his little stool, and then I got to see if that checkered suit was bulletproof. Which, of course, was enough for another level. I choose to take this as an uplifting message. Remember, kids, it may take you a little while to get off the ground, but once you reach a certain point, you just start coasting. And then your shotguns can bypass enemy armor. With the platinum chip in tow, I went over to Mr. House for the part of the game I've been afraid of since the moment I had this idea, getting locked into the basement for this needlessly long demonstration. Yep, not like time is a factor, not like I spent so long down here that I reached another 30-minute mark and had to run along with it. No way that happened. If I was ever going to rethink my loyalties, it was right here. But no, I'm siding with good old Robbie House. A lot of people say siding with House is a bad decision, that you'll just be his tool, well maintained and afforded all the luxuries, but a tool nonetheless. And I'm okay with that. Fact of the matter is, I was never all that good at being a human being. I'm gonna give it a go as a socket wrench and see if I do any better. Also, I needed House. Without the time to spend gambling or looting, the money I made selling him snow globes would be my lifeline. I was hoping to spend some of that cash at the Gunrunners buying a hunting shotgun, but they didn't have one. So I tried again further up the road at the trading post, but they didn't have one either. Though they did have the long tube for a hunting shotgun, so that was a fun irony. So with ammo and a mod for a gun I didn't have, I continued south from Helios 1 towards Novak. I figured I'd stop in, say hi, and complete their local quest for another end slide. Easy enough, right? Well, the ghouls on the road were good shotgun fodder, the ghouls in the parking lot were good machine gun fodder, and the corpses along the way were stacked up with high-value energy weapons I could sell when I was done. Even once I was inside, contending with more ghouls along with a time requirement to run, a human requirement to drink, and a related human requirement to piss, I wasn't doing too bad. Until I made it upstairs, they sent me downstairs, and the real pain could begin. The Nightkin were waiting for me, and I cannot stress this enough, a shotgun against a super mutant did nothing. As a matter of fact, everything I threw at him did nothing, and they descended on me in a swarm. For a while there, I thought I had them handled as a group, training them around as a mob just like good old Call of Duty zombies. But, just like Call of Duty zombies, the wave ends when you get stuck in a corner and the horde beats your skull in. So okay, I tried again. This time I didn't aggravate every super mutant in the basement, I just took them one at a time. And I got one, getting rewarded with a pittance. And it didn't even matter since the rest of them found me like 5 minutes later. I didn't know what to do. My guns were doing nothing while they beat me to a long, tall pulp. But that was when salvation arrived in the most unlikely place. Those energy weapons I have been collecting. In desperation, I whipped one out and the effect was immediate. I mean, it worked so well, I lost sight of my intended character build and started trying to make plasma and lasers work instead. Once I had fried the last Nightkin under light amplified by stimulated emission of radiation, I headed back upstairs to bring the friendly ghouls downstairs. They have rockets, they need parts for those rockets, I got the parts, and then I got a taste of what it's like to be schizophrenic as both the radio and the PA system started speaking at once.
Radioactive prayers. The particles look like grains of salt or sand. Aura gives off invisible gamma rays like X-rays.
Good thing I'm already insane, or this might be troubling. From the observation platform, I bid the ghouls farewell. Or rather, I was forced to bid the ghouls farewell as the game glued my feet to the floor. But all that mattered was that Novak's end slide was secure and I was free to move on with the main quest line. House needed me to revamp his army hidden in the secret bunker to the east, deep in the heart of Kaisar's territory. It would take quite the hike to get there. Hey, Kaisar. And I was heading down into the bunker where I could immediately stop and take another mile. But the esophagus burning pain of running was still preferable to what was waiting ahead of me. Oh, I still had those pulse slugs I bought in preparation for this very area, but now I was too good for all of that. 20 gauge was out, plasma was in. I will say it made it easier for aiming as I could see where my projectiles were going. It was much harder when the turret started shooting at me from beyond the draw distance. One death and a lot of stim-pack spam later, I got through the bunker to install the platinum chip. And Kaisar, being the intellectual juggernaut that he is, mistook the rumbling down below for me carrying out his will to destroy the bunker. Hey, if he wants to pay me for kicking him in the balls, who am I to complain? House was pleased and immediately sent me back out to recruit the guys hanging out at Nillis Air Force Base. Since it was close by and I didn't have any fast travel points, I decided to stretch my legs and walk a little. My virtual legs. My real legs were plenty stretched by this point. But this was the mistake, as on my way out the Securitrons were attacking a trespasser and ended up hitting me! I'm starting to think I should have named my character Rodnea Dangerfield, because she gets no respect. On my way out of town, I completed another quest which got me a level up and reminded me why using energy weapons is a stupid idea, because my energy weapons skill is still at a solid 9. So I was back to my quest to find a hunting shotgun, which of course the gun runners still weren't selling. Like I say, no respect. Well, if the arms merchants wouldn't take my money, the healthcare industry sure would, and I visited New Vegas Medical Clinic, where the cute Asian doctor, who this mod makes Caucasian for some reason, could give me a plant. An implant, that is. One to make me just the tiniest bit tougher. Of course, nothing short of a total body conversion would protect me from uninterrupted artillery fire, but it's okay. The Germans figured out how to get around this shit over 100 years ago. I'm pretty sure me, with my 2 brain cells and 3 balls, can figure it out. My solution was drugs. I pulled out the turbo, took one hit, and was immediately addicted. But it's okay. Turbo addiction only debuffs my agility. You know, the stat I invested in most heavily because it improves my movement speed. It's fine. The local doctor couldn't help my addiction, and that's fine too. Instead, I helped him. With one doctor's magazine and some Adderall, I was able to cure all of his patients. Great guy, good times. Looking for more ways to make myself useful, I found Loyal, who wants me to fix up their power array. It's not hard work, it's just a long walk and he's old. As for me, well, these boots weren't made for walking, but f*** it, we've come this far. I repaired their solar panels with help from another magazine, and while I was there, helped out by clearing out their insect problem. Well, I say I helped. I walked past all the ants, installed the radio, and turned it on. Whereupon all the ants' heads exploded from listening to music that wasn't from the 50s or 60s. But I protected myself by going for another run. But I was in the end game now. More miles behind me than ahead of me, the boomers loved me, and all I needed to do was raise their precious super fortress from the bottom of Lake Mead to make them fight and die on my behalf. My first attempt to raise the bomber ended in failure when the Shape of Water Man one-tapped me with a sonic blast. So I came back and took a detour around their area. A detour so wide it ended up at Camp Golf, where I could visit the island of misfit GIs. Just walk around in a circle completing speech checks, complete their quest, nab another end slide, and that is the only thing I'll ever do to help the NCR. Then I could dive feet first into Lake Mead. Believe me, I would love to swim as my character swam, but that would require me to visit any of the lakes in my area, and I just don't know if there are any lakes in this state. Attach the ballast, raise the plane, the boomers love me and are ready to go to war and die on behalf of a character named after a rock song most prominently featured in a sci-fi action movie from the 1980s. The Asian non-Asian doctor finally cured me of my addiction, and Mr. House was so content with my progress that he sent me across the street. Turns out there's another casino that needs my help. My own special brand of help involving theft, murder, and a little magazine-aided blackmail. Though the blackmail might have been a mistake because getting this guy to destroy some guns for me took f***ing forever. I left the casino and waited, got in a knife fight to occupy my time, waited again, even left the strip to go shopping at the Gunrunners, and that was when a miracle happened. They were actually selling a hunting shotgun, and another upgrade to go along with it. Even with all my barter increases, buying the gun nearly put me in the poorhouse, but now I was getting somewhere. I went back to the casino, and the truth is the guns had already been destroyed. This whole time I've been waiting for some kind of quest update, but it happened when I wasn't looking. At least the guy doing the work got himself killed along the way, so I could take some comfort in that. I dismantled the conspiracy with a little 12-gauge diplomacy, installed my own leader as a puppet, and I was moving on. Last faction on the list was the good old Brotherhood of Steel, so I nabbed Miss Veronica here to help get me inside and clear the NCR correctional facility along the way. Well, she was here to tank bullets while I cleared the place with a smug grin and a pump action, because we don't abide semi-autos around here. From there we moved into Hidden Valley where the Brotherhood were nesting, and I would like to show you all that, but I can't. Here's what happened. I have my OBS set up to record continuously, but split and export footage every 30 minutes or so. Very nice of it. But for some reason, instead of throwing that footage on the vast empty space of my external hard drive, it was stuffing it onto my desktop. And when it ran out of space, it was out of space. Good news is you didn't miss anything fun. The most interesting thing to happen was when Head Paladin Hardin died of natural causes. In that buckshot, cordite, and a 12-gauge shotgun shell are all made from elements that naturally occurred on the planet Earth at some point. Point is, the Brotherhood were wiped out, and let's make it a clean sweep. That was the last end slide I needed. I was free to finish the game. For whatever reason, Mr. House didn't send me to interfere with the assassination of NCR President Kimball. Maybe it was because I never passed by Hoover Dam in my travels. Maybe it was because he felt guilty for locking me in the basement for an overlong presentation. Either way, I wasn't complaining. head over to the Eldorado substation, sneak in, sneak out, fast travel back to the strip, and hit the road one more time in what I thought would be my final mile. It was time for the end, the second battle of Hoover Dam. Just me and this Securitron as my buddy to get things done. Caesar's Legion were there in force, taunting me as every one of their troops used hunting shotguns. But I was better trained, better equipped, and better supplied after I piled up a small mountain of shotgun shells taken off their corpses. Inside there were more Legion troops who decided they'd lived too long, so decided to get up close and personal with the long, tall woman holding a scattergun. I could have just gone on to the end, but stupidity of this caliber deserved to be punished. Though I did pause long enough to let this one weeb with a katana duel an NCR trooper. Turns out katana beats heavy pistol, and Remington 870 beats your Japanese steel. Honestly, it's shots like those that make a shotgun build so worth it. Back outside, the Legion had stepped up their game and were bringing in the anti-material rifles. My hunting shotgun handled itself very well, though my Securitron buddy never stood a chance. So I was on my own going into the Legates camp, and the Legionaries still didn't get the message that I have a shotgun. I was all clear to face the man himself, but stop right there, because it's time for the third act sucker punch. You see, my speech was still at 80, by design. I needed those points for other things, and I was relying on magazines to make up the difference. But ever since I went to Gamora, convincing that one dude to blow up those guns and get himself killed, I hadn't found another Meeting People magazine. And after 2 attempts trying and failing to face Legate Lanius and all his dudes, it was clear I couldn't beat him that way. Even training them around like zombies wouldn't work. I had no choice but to backtrack, go back in time before the battle and buy a new magazine from a vendor. But the followers didn't have one, the Asian non-Asian doctor didn't have one, the Good Springs General Store didn't have one, the NCR Outpost didn't have one, the Dinobite gift shop didn't have one. I even went to the Crimson Caravan Company for the first time in this playthrough, and they didn't have one. I traveled over the entire state of Nevada looking for someone to sell me a goddamn People magazine. Finally, I had to turn to the wiki to find somewhere, anywhere I could get a magazine. And there was one place, right in a town I'd already visited, right inside the Good Springs schoolhouse. Right there, just lying in the middle of the floor. Awesome, right, great, but I had my Meeting People, and I was ready. The second battle for Hoover Dam went quick. I was moving fast, though not quite fast enough as the battle had to be interrupted at one point for me to go on yet another run. Still, I was doing better. This time my Securitron buddy made it all the way to the Legates camp, though he ended up getting caught on a gate and punched to death a little while later. Who cares? I popped the magazine, convinced Legate Lanius to exit stage right. The effect lasted long enough I could tell General Oliver to tuck his tail between his legs and leave the way he came in. Daddy House was happy, I was happy that he was happy, and I could watch the end credits tell me what an evil character I had played. Yes, apparently Long Tall Sally was good-natured, yet at the same time so evil she made even Robert House quake in his boots. Just the cost of playing a hard, fast game. Oh, I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I had a dream the other night when everything was still. I thought I saw Susanna coming down the hill. A buckwheat cake was in her mouth, a tear was in her eye. I said, I'm coming from Dixieland, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I soon will be in New Orleans, and then I'll look around, and when I see my gal Suzanne, I'll fall upon the ground. But if I don't find her there, this man will surely die. And when I'm dead and buried, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Truth be told, I think I got a little too easygoing with this challenge. I was expecting to have this done in about 10 miles, and looking back, taking out all my screw-ups, that would have been way more realistic. 2 extra miles may not seem like a lot, but it adds up. Hey, at least this way it was closer to a half marathon, and the title is a little bit more appropriate. Besides that, thank you all very, very much for watching if you made it to this point. Come back for more weird workout challenges in the future, and certainly more New Vegas. Yeah, that does mean I'll be doing the DLC at some point. Just give me a chance to rest my feet, please. Back inside the Prospector Saloon, I learned about Ringo, started the Ghost Fight Guntown quest, and let me tell you, I fucked that up so good, but I'm gonna keep on going anyway. Fucking Ghost Fight Guntown.